Yo, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. I'm bringing you guys our draft breakdown here for the Minnesota Vikavolts and the NPA Season 3 draft. If you guys are hyped for this breakdown and you didn't see the live draft, or you just want to hear my further thoughts, show some love on that like button down below, and definitely make sure you guys subscribe if you're new. Throughout this video, I'm going to be talking for the next 30 minutes or so about the team I drafted for this season, why I drafted the Pokemon I drafted, kind of my reasoning there, and also what my plans are for this season, hopefully providing you guys some amazing, entertaining gameplay every single Saturday for the NPA. If you don't know, I'm also playing in another league called the GBA, which I've been in for a couple seasons now as well, and I'll be using the St. Louis Rampardos for that league. This league was previously the New York Metapods. However, I've switched the team name to the Minnesota Vikavolts for this season for a couple of reasons, and first and foremost, I do want to thank everyone who has supported the Metapods in the past. I'm not getting rid of that franchise entirely. I may come back and use it at some point. I really like the Mets as actually it's my favorite team, so the Metapods kind of fit that. But with Gen 7 having just come out, the Alola hype, Vikavolt being my absolute favorite Pokemon in Gen 7, I really saw an opportunity to kind of brand those two together, Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Vikavolts. I thought it would sound really cool, and I really like the logo design. We got an amazing t-shirt design in the works. It may be ready by the time this goes up, but I'm thinking it's going to be another couple days, so keep an eye out on my Twitter for that, guys. But very, very excited nevertheless for this team, and I hope you guys are as well. I plan to bring you guys some amazing content with that. So anyway, going into the draft, I pretty much didn't have much of a plan. As you guys probably know, my schedule's been pretty hectic as of late. I've been really busy juggling a lot of things on YouTube and Twitch, trying to manage all this different content between my leagues and my shiny hunting and my VGC stuff and the cage lock and whatever else. But nevertheless, I went into the draft without much of a plan, and I kind of winged it, I would say. But I do want to let you guys know that I have a team of people who do assist me when it comes to drafting and things like that. I've got some homies like Regulator, my man Omar, I got my dude Nick, and a couple other people, Callum, who helped me out and helped me build my teams and help me draft and so on and so forth. And the reason for that is it's not that much of a secret. Most teams do something like that. I do it because I can't possibly think of every scenario myself, right? So by having people to help me out and give me just ideas and things that I might not think of is always super useful, especially since a lot of the guys that I work with, they play more competitive Showdown than I do. I don't have a ton of time to play competitive anymore. I do it for fun. I love playing the leagues, but I haven't been someone who plays a ton aside from VGC right now. I'm pretty much just playing VGC, but either way, very hyped for this season. I plan on giving it my all, guys. We made it to the playoffs last season. Didn't make it much further, but I think that we have a better team this year. I'm very excited for the team we drafted. I think I actually drafted a very good team, and it almost got messed up, which I'll explain as we go through our picks here. But basically, just the general gist is this was a tiered draft format, whereas the GBA was a free draft. So that means you just pick whatever you want, whenever you want. But this draft, we had specific requirements. So we needed to pick a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3, a tier 4, another tier 4, a tier 5, a tier S, which is like Megas and the best Pokemon, so like Tapu Lele and things like that, and then 4 free slots, and the 4 free slots have to add to 400 total points. Don't really worry too much about that. Basically, long story short, a tier 3 equals 100 points, so you could essentially get 4 tier 3s in your free slots, and then that'll kind of make that up, and I'm pretty sure that's what I ended up doing. I think I just drafted 4 tier 3s, and then we ended up with 5 tier 3s total, and so on and so forth. But we'll look through the team here. I'll break down my picks and so on and so forth. So, jumping into the draft, like I said, I didn't have much of a plan. I knew if I could grab one of the Tapus, that'd be great. Mega Metagross was a tier S, which was just insane. So there's a couple Pokemon that were kind of standing out to me when the draft first began in terms of Pokemon that I felt like might be like super duper good. And if I pull up the list here, I can tell you I was looking at the Tapus, I was looking at Mega Metagross, Celesteela, Kartana, those kind of things. Just those really, really powerful Pokemon. But none of those fell. Tapu Fini did fall, and I was very tossed up with my first pick, whether I was going to go Tapu Fini or Necrozma, and I decided to go Necrozma. Now, this is a Pokemon you may not be that familiar with, but it was banned in the GBA, so it was not allowed to be used in the GBA, so it wasn't even potential to draft, and I was sitting at, I think, the 21st draft position out of 24 teams, making this draft very tough. Not only do I have a super late pick, but I don't even have a wheel. I have a few picks removed from a wheel, so it's not exactly perfect, and by the time I pick my first pick and my second pick, then I have to wait like 40 picks to go again, and as you can imagine, that makes it very challenging to plan out a draft. But I decided to go with Necrozma for a couple reasons. One, I thought that this thing is very, very cool. It fits my playstyle. It's got a great ability called Prism Armor, I believe, which is kind of like filter on Agron, Mega Agron. So it's something I'm very familiar with. Psychic is a really good typing just in general. It's only got a few weaknesses. It's got a great move pool. It can set up Stealth Rocks, which I really like. It's got great stats in terms of its special attack, special defense, and attack stat. All pretty good stats across the board. 97 HP, and then, like I said, usable stats across the board. Enough bulk to take some hits, especially with that Prism armor, really kind of helping with its longevity. It's got decent coverage in terms of its physical move pool and its special move pool. Got some opportunities to set up with things like Calm Mind, and there's a really popular set called the Weakness Policy set, where you take it like a super effective hit, like a knockoff or whatever, and then you're able to sweep at that point. So this thing is really, really cool. I'm pretty sure it even gets like Rock Polish too, if I'm not mistaken. I'm kind of looking through its move pool. I'm pretty sure it gets Rock Polish. I could be mistaken there, but I have a feeling it does. If not, then just forget I said that. But it's got a Totemize, so I know it's got a Totemize. So it does have a way to boost its speed and potentially sweep. And again, having Stealth Rock's reliable recovery with Moonlight and Morning Sun makes it a huge, huge threat. So very excited about this pick. And while I always get a little bit thrown off by drafting Psychic types first, because there's so many good Psychic types, it seems, I really felt like I could build around this Pokemon. So I went with Necrozma. Then my second pick was a Pokemon, again, I don't really know much about Infernape in terms of using it myself, but I've faced it many times and I know what it does. Infernape is a very good Pokemon, and part of the reason why I drafted it is because me and my team building crew felt that Infernape should have been in tier 1. So we felt that by drafting Infernape at this point in time, we were getting a lot of bang for our buck. We were getting a lot of value, and we're also covering some of the issues that Necrozma has problems with, right? So Necrozma's main issue is dark types, and Infernape happens to plow through them with close combat. So Infernape also has priority, which is really good. It's another Stealth Rock user. It's very fast at 108 base speed. It can hit both offensively and specially offensive. It's got a ton of utility, and that is what makes Infernape really, really good. I'm very excited to have Infernape, and the fact that any Pokemon in the draft can use Z Crystals really makes Infernape shine even more. Being able to use any one of the Z moves that it can cover, Earthquake, Ground EMZ, Thunder Punch. I mean, it's got just a plethora of different options, Grass Knot, all sorts of stuff. HP Ice is pretty common. So Infernape is just a super versatile Pokemon, and it helps me with that potential dark weakness that Necrozma would have an issue with, because Necrozma can really set up and sweep against most things, except for like really good dark types. That's one of the main crutches, and also Psychic types, obviously. Like a good Psychic type will stop Necrozma as well. But you'll see I try to patch those weaknesses as we go through our draft. So very excited about Infernape. Really was a case of me just trying to draft the best thing available at the time and also cover Necrozma. And I've also learned that Stealth Rocks are actually super important a lot of the time. So I wanted to make sure I have multiple ways to set Stealth Rocks. So I've already got 2 options there, which is really good, because in the past I've had teams where I only have like 1 option, and it really limits my creativity when it comes to building a team and really limits kind of the options I go with. But our next pick came up here, and again, we had to wait quite a long time for our next pick, and I decided to go with Alolan Ninetales. And kind of my thought process here is Alolan Ninetales is one of the new Pokemon, and I wasn't trying to fall into the trap of shiny new toys, but Alolan Ninetales was just one of those Pokemon that I didn't want to pass up on. I really felt it was going to be incredibly useful for the team, being able to use Aurora Veil, being able to, you know, hit 100% accurate Blizzard, set the Hail. I saw some potential pairings with this in Beartic or this in Alolan Sandslash, so I really thought that I could hold off until the end of the draft to grab that and then have some sort of weather presence as well. But really the main purpose for Alolan Ninetales was to snag a fairy first and foremost, and secondly, and probably most importantly, because it's got the best reflect light screen type move in the game in Aurora Veil, being able to set that Aurora Veil with a Light Clay 8 turns basically of light screen plus reflect. That is insane in League format. It's even more so in VGC, which is where I'm familiar with it more, but I can tell you in this format, I have a feeling that Ninetales is going to be a very, very good Pokemon. That dual screen is going to be incredibly scary for people to deal with, and I'm very excited about it. I really think it's going to be pretty insane to have this thing on my team. Again, basically opening up doors for other Pokemon to set up. Both Necrozma and Infernape can be set up sweepers, so I'm very excited about Ninetales here, and again, I thought I could pair it later on with something that can kind of benefit from the Hail. Our next pick here coming in, I decided to grab a free slot. We grabbed Krookodile. Very excited about Krookodile. It's a Pokemon I've never used before in League, but I think it can be very, very effective. It's got a couple great abilities in Moxie and Intimidate, so 2 great abilities to allow it to sweep, and again, I wanted to have a way to handle those Psychic types now for Necrozma. So you see I really build around Necrozma here. This also gives me a ground type, which is something that people often look towards to try to get for their league, so ground type check right there. A great dark type that gets knockoff and hits really, really hard. Great attack stat, and again, can be running multitude of sets. It can run the Moxie set or the Intimidate set, and Choice Scarf Moxie Crook is very scary. You can sweep a team. You know, same with the Intimidate set, can be very, very annoying. Can also set up Stealth Rocks. So Krookodile was a great, great pick here. And it checked off a lot of the boxes that I felt that I needed to check off for this team to be successful. Again, being able to support Necrozma with taking care of those Psychic types, and also just being able to be just a true menace, use moves like knockoff and stuff like that, potentially be a cleaner with a scarf and so on and so forth. I really felt that Krookodile was going to benefit this team quite a bit. So here we are again, kind of waiting a tremendous amount of picks to come back to us, and I'm able to grab Shaymin here, a little Shaymin, which is a Pokemon I'm actually pretty familiar with. I've play tested Shaymin quite a bit on Showdown, never really drafted it though, if I'm not mistaken, but it is one of those base 100 legendaries, so it's got great stats across the board. And the thing I love about Shaymin is it can run a multitude of sets as well. It can be like a sub Leech Seed set, it can be an offensive Assault Vest, it can be Scarfed, it can be Specs, it can do a lot of things, and it's got a great stab move in Seed Flare, which is probably one of the best wall breaking moves in the game, considering how when you fire off a Seed Flare, if you get that drop, then this thing just starts to wreak havoc, and you throw a Bloom Doom on there, that could be a huge problem for opponents. Bulky grass types are always great too, to take ground types on and things like that, and Shaymin's got a great coverage pool to be able to handle a lot of different threats. It's not the strongest thing in the world, obviously, because it is base 100 across the board, but I've seen all sorts of different Shaymins work very effectively, and it's also got natural cure, so you can switch into different status, switch back out, and be pretty effective. And again, I'm starting to build out my cores. You know, Fire, Water, Grass, Fairy, Dragon, Steel, those are two main structures that people always try to focus on. So I wanted to grab, I got my Fire, I got my my Grass now, I got my Shaymin, and I was really excited about that, and I felt that Shaymin was going to complement the team incredibly well and help out against those bulky waters and things like that, because it can break down some serious walls, and it also gives me some pretty good speed tiering, right? 109, 108. Shaymin's at 100, Crook falls below that, Necrozma falls just below that. So we've got some pretty good speed tiers. It's all about breaking up those speed tiers to force your opponent into running different natures that they might otherwise want to run. You want to force them into a timid instead of a jolly, or I'm sorry, a timid instead of a modest if you have to. Just to take away that extra power there. So Shaymin felt really good, and I was excited about that. And then again, here we are, you know, every two picks, basically, I have to wait quite a while. But on this pick, I didn't want to wait a while. I had to grab this Pokemon when I did, and I decided to grab a Vikavolt, the mascot pick here. Now, actually, at the time, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I really wanted Vikavolt. And this is, I think, the first time I've ever gone with a mascot pick. I wanted to have some fun with this draft and pick some Pokemon that I wanted to try. And Vikavolt, I know it's not the greatest Pokemon in the world. I get that. I know it's not that amazing. It's got a pretty slow speed stat, but it's also a decently effective Pokemon. It's got a great ability in Levitate, which gives it only a handful of weaknesses. Rock and Fire, I think, are the only ones, and it can dodge ground type moves, which is quite nice. It's got an incredible special attack stat and a decent move pool. Things like grass coverage, like Energy Ball, I believe, Flash Cannon, Air Slash, things like that. And you can even run like Ground EMZ Mud Shot if you want to be like super tech with it. So there are some options there, and I really like Vikavolt's special attack stat. It's pretty insane. And I do like the agility setup sweeper set. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. I think you totally set up an agility and sweep with this thing, especially considering electric types are really good in the format, and slow volt switches aren't bad. So I really like Vikavolt, and I'm excited I drafted it. I may have taken it a little bit early, but this is one of those picks that like I knew I wanted Vikavolt in this draft, and I was willing to forego a better Pokemon just because I thought it'd be fun to use Vikavolt. So this is one of the few instances where I actually solely drafted, or pretty much solely drafted, just because I wanted to use the Pokemon, and it was a mascot pick, which I've never done before. I never picked a mascot. I certainly wasn't picking Metapod, and I've never picked Rampardos, so I wanted to go with the mascot pick. So here we are, Vikavolt. No regrets, man. I'm glad we got it. I think I probably grabbed it a little bit early. Probably grabbed it just a wee bit early, but again, it wasn't a risk I was willing to take. I did not want to risk that someone else was going to grab it as I waited for my next pick to come around. So we grabbed Vikavolt, checks off the box for a electric type and bug type again too. So don't forget, I'm checking off all these boxes here. Bug types, of course, help against Necrozma's weaknesses of dealing with dark and psychic. Vikavolt pairs up very nicely with that. So all this, like, it all kind of was part of a plan as we built up the team. It's one pick at a time is how I always draft, but you got to have that foresight and see kind of what you think you're going to grab in the future. So really excited about Vikavolt. I was glad I was able to snag it, and I was looking forward to my next pick here coming in, and I went with Dragalge. So another free Pokemon. This filled up my third free slot, another tier 3 Pokemon, so 100 points here. And Dragalge is a Pokemon that I actually had on my team last season in the GBA and dropped it. But it's because I needed to cover some other holes on my team. Dragalge was not, or I think I traded it actually. Dragalge was not something that I wanted to get rid of. I really like this Pokemon, and it's a very, very huge offensive threat. Adaptability makes it so it's poison and dragon type moves are double in stab. Instead of just stab, it gets double basically. So this thing nukes. I'm telling you, it nukes. When you drop a Draco with a Specs Dragalge, or when you drop a Sludge Wave with a Specs Dragalge, it is going to destroy something. Like, seriously, it is going to destroy something. This thing is one of the few things in the format that I think really doesn't have a ton of switch-ins, especially when you run the Specs variant. And I really like the versatility with it by running T-Spikes. I think that T-Spikes is one of my favorite moves in League format. It can be hard to use, but when you use it effectively, it can be a really, really good move. So I wanted to give Dragalge another chance here, and I think it can actually put in some work. And again, it covers a poison type, which is great. Gives me something to switch into fairy types. It's got my dragon type coverage, so I got my fairy and my dragon. Still need that steel type, but feeling good there, and I need my water type still to complete my fire, water, grass. But nevertheless, I just really like this Pokemon in terms of a big nuke and hitting really hard. And again, I love the T-Spike support. I always try to draft something that can carry T-Spike, so Dragalge seemed like a good bet. Next is Vaporeon, guys, and I have no idea how Vaporeon fell this long in the draft. I have a feeling that for some reason people just forgot this thing existed or whatever it may be, but when I saw that this was available in whatever round we're at, 9 or whatever, 8, whatever it was, I can't count, I was so hyped, guys. Vaporeon is one of my favorite Pokemon to use in League format. It's very one-dimensional in terms of what it does, mostly just Scald, potentially Ice Beam, Baton Pass, Wish, Heal Bell. Basically, that's what it does every time, but it does it very well. It does it very, very well, and it provides Wish support for the rest of my team. It provides Cleric support through Heal Bell. It gives me momentum with Baton Pass because I can drive Baton Pass. I don't have to pass the stats. Simply just click Baton Pass to switch out and go into something else. This thing is awesome, dude. I love Vaporeon. I've used it effectively in a couple leagues now, and I have no regrets of drafting again. Again, super duper bulky, adds to the bulk of my team, can take a lot of hits, pairs incredibly well with Shaymin and things like that, right? It's weak to electric and grass. Shaymin can resist those. We've also got Vikavolt, which pairs really well there type-wise. So we've got a couple different options. The team synergy is looking beautiful. And I know I don't have too many threats on my team that just stand out as being like, oh my god, look at this crazy Kyurem Black or Victini type of thing. But I really feel like we drafted some great balance at this point in time. And I'm very excited about Vaporeon being on the team, man. I love this Pokemon, and I've used it very effectively in the past, so I definitely think it'll fit the mold of this team. Probably better than any other team I've had, so very excited about Vaporeon. Now, the next pick is Alolan Sandslash, but as you may or may not know, I did not actually draft Alolan Sandslash. I drafted Agron, and let me explain the scenario that happened here. So after I drafted Vaporeon, the draft went back down, and then it came back up to me, and as it was coming back up to me, I think, maybe I was like 20 picks away or something, I think it was Jerry decided to grab Alolan Sandslash, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. I was basically expecting nobody to draft Alolan Sandslash. This thing is terrible unless you have Hail support for the most part. It's got really kind of bad defensive typing, decent offensive typing, but pretty bad defensive typing. But I needed it on my team. I needed it on my team. So as soon as Alolan Sandslash was taken, I was like, I need to figure this out. So I started typing away, and I'm messaging him. I'm pretty sure it was Jerry. And I said, Jerry, I need this Pokemon, Jerry. We need to trade, man. We need to trade somehow, Jerry. I can't, yeah, it was the Los Angeles Landorus. I'm like, Jerry, I need Sandslash. What do I have to give you to get Sandslash? I need it. And he said, he's like, I don't really, there's not a whole lot I need, but if you draft Agron, I'll make the trade with you. So I said, okay, fine, I'm cool with that. So I picked Agron as my next pick, and Jerry was willing to swap with me. So I don't know exactly why he made the trade, whether he was just being a nice guy or whether he actually, like, second thought says, hey, maybe Agron will be better for my team. And actually looking at his team, I do think Agron fits his team better than Gliscor. I'm sorry, better than Alolan Sandslash. He already has a Starmie for a spinner. He's got plenty of bulk on his team. He has a Steel type in Cobalion, so it's not really like he needed Sandslash. I actually think Agron fits his team better, like I said. Agron's actually a really big threat. It hits incredibly hard with Head Smash, and it does have Sturdy, I believe, so it can be really, really good. So he made the trade with me, and I'm very thankful for that. If he didn't make the trade, I would have drafted Beartic, so it wouldn't have been the end of the world, but I definitely needed Alolan Sandslash for my squad because I needed that Steel type, and as you can see, this rounds out my cores now. I have my Steel type. Now, I understand Sandslash is not the best Steel type or defensive Pokemon in the game, but it does have these two weaknesses, right? Fire and Fighting are the two main ones, but I have plenty of things to check those. So I wasn't too scared of that. But the other thing Sandslash does for me is it provides the potential for hail sweeping under hail with the Alolan Ninetales, and also, more importantly, gives me a hazard remover, which my team lacks at this point in time, a rapid spinner. Even if I only have just one rapid spinner, just one thing that can remove hazards, that's good enough. I just need one thing, and the only reason why, like, you can't draft a team without a hazard remover, because then your opponent is able to just click spikes and T-spikes and stealth rocks, and then you're done. But with Dragalge, I can absorb those T-spikes. With Sandslash, I have a threat to spin them away, and a legitimate threat to spin them away. Sandslash isn't terrible, like I said, and under hail, it's actually a pretty solid offensive option, so it can sweep some teams for sure, especially after you get a Swords Dance up. It can be very, very effective under Slush Rush or under hail. So glad I got Sandslash, and thank you for the trade, by the way, man, because I know you didn't have to do that. I think it ends up working out for the both of us, but if I didn't have Alolan Sandslash, that would have definitely changed the next couple picks here, because I would have had to make up the difference, obviously. And we did make this trade like mid-draft, essentially, so I had to kind of, I was able to make the corrections I needed to make like live while we were drafting to make sure that I can fix the team, or make sure if I needed to fix the team, I would fix it. But again, we were able to make that quick swap there and make a little trade there for Agron, Alolan Sandslash, so I was very excited about that. Now the next pick is, as you can tell, I didn't pick a tier 1 yet at this point in time, and at this point in the draft, the tier 1 pool was pretty thinned out. So much so that I did discuss with the team management, and we agreed that if I wanted to, I can actually draft a tier 2 as my tier 1 slot, which no one really seemed to have too much of a gripe with, because a tier 2 is obviously valued at less than what a tier 1 is, so I'm basically hurting myself by doing that. But at the time, there was like nothing left in tier 1. Like, I'm looking at it right now, I think it was Bisharp, Chansey, Conkeldurr, Goodra, Hippowdon, and I was looking at, well, I don't even think it was Hippowdon, I feel like Hippowdon got dropped or something, but either way, I was looking at Goodra as an option, I was looking at Conkeldurr, and I was looking at Bisharp. Those are the three, but I already had Dragalge, so I didn't really want Goodra. I already have Infernape, so Conkeldurr was probably going to be my option, but I didn't really want it, and I didn't want Chansey, and I really don't like Bisharp that much, so I probably would have went with Bisharp if not for the Alolan Sandslash trade. So if I didn't get Sandslash, I would have went with Bisharp, because that would have given me my Steel type, but nevertheless, I went with a tier 2 Pokemon, and I went with Monior. And the reason for this is Monior, first of all, is a pretty cool threat. It's got a great speed at 120 after it kind of flips, breaks down its shield. Great stats, another weakness policy type Pokemon, another setup sweeper, Shell Smash shenanigans, dude. Can you just imagine the potential Shell Smash behind an Aurora Veil with shields down? That is going to be scary. That is going to be incredibly scary for my opponents. You can't status this thing with the shield up. You can't do anything to it. It's got great coverage, Power Herb, Shell Smash, Acrobatics, then you get the higher base power Acrobatics after you burn your Power Herb and save your defenses. I mean, this thing is amazing, guys. It can set Stealth Rocks, it can be a suicide lead, it could be as offensive sweeper, physically offensive, specially offensive, decent coverage, fighting, rock type stab is amazing, flying type stab is also amazing. In league format, we talk about different kinds of things that'll break down other teams, and it seems like we call Brave Bird spam and we call rock spam, and those two things always tend to do really well. So we have Acrobatics, which is almost as good as Brave Bird, but you don't get the recoil, and we have different rock type coverage like Power Gem and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to using Monior, and again, I know I took a tier 2 pick as a tier 1, so you would think that as a disadvantage, but I really wanted to get creative with this pick, and I think that Monior is going to be huge for the team. Very excited about it, guys. I really think it's going to be good, especially with us having our Alolan Ninetales, and that kind of set us up for our tier 5 pick. There wasn't a ton in tier 5. I mean, tier 5 is basically kind of the bottom barrel. There are some good things there. I would have patched some weaknesses if I needed to, but I really felt that we had the team we needed, so I went with Goribus, of course. Goribus, I am not allowed to Shell Smash a Baton Pass with it, but I can Shell Smash with it, and it's got decent stats, actually, surprisingly, and after a Shell Smash, this thing can put in some work, and again, same kind of thing. Behind that Aurora Veil, this thing could really put in some work and can be really, really scary, so I really like Goribus, and I think it's going to work really well, and I'm excited about the team. So just kind of looking through the team here, we got Necrozma, Infernape, Ninetales, Crook, Shaymin, Vikavolt, Dragalge, Vaporeon, Alolan Sandslash, Monior, and Goribus. Very hyped about this team, guys. I think it's a great team. I really do. I'm not sure how it's going to stack up, but you have to keep in mind we had 24 teams drafting. So you take 24 teams, you have to spread out all these Pokemon over 24 teams, which means that each team is going to be thinner than it normally would be, right? Because we don't have, there's so many more picks. Like the GB is only 16 teams, so that's 8 less teams. So that's a lot less Pokemon. I mean, we're talking about the difference of approximately eight less teams times 11 Pokemon. It's almost 100 Pokemon that went undrafted in GBA that got drafted in this league. So obviously the draft pool is going to be a lot thinner, but very, very excited for this team, guys. I think it's going to be top notch. I'm hyped about it. I hope you guys are as well. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think of our draft breakdown here? Do you think we got a winner or we got a loser? Any tweaks you would have made yourself? I'm excited to use a lot of these Pokemon though. A lot of it is new to me. I have some familiar friends like Vaporeon, Dragalge, things like that, but the rest of the team is pretty new, but should be a lot of fun, man. I think we got some opportunities to sweep and really scare our opponents with some great different speed tiers. We got the coverage, the different types. I checked off all the boxes I pretty much wanted to check off between fire, water, grass, fairy, dragon, steel. I got my setup sweepers, I got my rockers, I got my hazard remover, I got my ground type, I got my electric type. I mean, I covered all the boxes I wanted to cover, so I really don't have much to complain. I think this is one of the best comprehensive drafts I've ever had. So that's gonna be that for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed our draft breakdown here for the Minnesota Vikavolts. Season 3 of the NPA starts next Saturday, guys. Get some hype for that. My name is Dan. I'll go by aDrive, and I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace.